Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I'm going to check to make sure this is working properly before I go further. And perfect. At least I think it's perfect. Make sure everything before I go further is, yes, I have sound. Alright, so tonight it's going to be somewhat of a different show. So the chat rooms are still open. Anybody can chat when they show up. But patrons themselves are going to be allowed to call in. Now, for anyone who's watching that's a patron, I've put a phone number into your patron account. That phone number will essentially give you access to the telephone here. Now, everyone else can still chat and everything else like normal. I am going to start off with a conversation, and we can move the dialogue from there. Well, there we are. My wife's here. Oh, she's the first person in. So I did a piece earlier about the media, and I'm going to do two stories. I'm going to wait till people get in to do the second story, but just to somewhat recount. I did a story earlier about media and saying media needs to be held accountable for their failures. I come to that conclusion for a few reasons. It's almost as if mainstream media has somewhat of a monopoly on the whole media apparatus. I guess what I'm saying is, if there's nobody to prosecute, we're the prosecutors in this case. Mainstream media, for the most part, fucked up massively. Again, in recent memory, that's what makes it so bad. They are immensely bad at what they do. They screamed about Russia hacking us for 8 months, never saw the evidence themselves. They went by an assessment, which is just an opinion, and now they're opening an investigation into the Trump thing. And look, they're probably going to get Trump on financial stuff, because yeah, I believe he's a crook in that regard. But come on, all of this started from Russia hacked us. Russia hacked into the DNC. It didn't happen. So yeah, mainstream media should be held accountable. They should be held accountable. And by that I mean excoriating mainstream media. The HB does it a lot. Hard Bastard does it a lot. But on this one, it's particularly egregious. It's a president of the United States that they themselves don't like. And I agree with him. He's a horrible person. But he still won. Because you can't necessarily beat him, you're going to go this kind of end around to try to have like a got you. I don't like it. And the last thing I want is Pence to be in that office. But more so, I don't want it to happen this particular way. It's gross. The point I make is mainstream media need to be held on it. They call people conspiracy theorists when those people kind of brought up, hey, I don't think Russia hacked us. I don't think Russia did it. How dare you conspiracy theorists, telling us that what we're saying isn't true. It wasn't true. Let me do one more check. Alright. So the main story I wanted to talk about tonight was the getting along thing. I did a video. Well, let me start from the beginning. Sane Progressive did a video, and she was just being her. She was, the road to path is paved with good intentions. Video was perfectly fine, no issue. She did her thing. She made her pitch. Somebody at the end brought up MMT, and in bringing up MMT, she went on somewhat of a tear that pissed a lot of people off, apparently. Now, the biggest issue, I guess, is her saying that you guys are becoming a cult, and to get off her page and to shoo away. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, so that was taken by real progressives as they were pissed. They were pissed. They were immensely pissed. In being immensely pissed, you've had multiple people come up and give their, what's the word I'm looking for? Give their opinion to her energetically. I made a video essentially saying, can the left just get along? And I tried to give context for each of the sides, meaning this is the way this person was seeing these events. This is the way this person was seeing these events. Ultimately, these people have different worldviews in regards to what they think can take place and what they think is possible. And those worldviews are clashing. My point was to move on. It was, I called it petty dramas. And I listened to Joe Firestone's rebuttal of all this. And I love Joe Firestone. He has a scholarly way of making his point. Like, so it's not fire and brimstone and hell and fury. It's, I'm going to get across to you what I'm thinking, and I'm going to frame your position, and I'm going to do my position. He framed the position honestly. That's all you can ever ask somebody to do when they're arguing. But here's the thing. I don't want him to believe that petty dramas was aimed at what they believed in or their reaction to it. That's not it. I'm saying petty dramas from the standpoint that what you guys are aiming for the most part, is the same thing. She just believes it, or at the very least, she's disinterested in it. But can people be disinterested? Is it okay for people to disagree and be disinterested? The call thing was a bit much. But I have to be honest, man. To some degree, so was the reaction. This is not me belittling I'm not trying to belittle. I put it that way. But me saying petty dramas just has more to do with the majority of 90% or more you guys agree with. Her, in that moment, saying something. It shouldn't necessarily go to the level of, I guess, a cold war or anger back and forth at that point. You feel that you were wronged, but she just gave her opinion. It's like somebody saying, Jesus Christ sucks, and a bunch of Christians losing their shit about it. You said nothing about them. You said something about what they themselves believed in. That's kind of what I was getting at when I said petty dramas. It's in a free society, will somebody be free to disbelieve? Even if you believe they're wrong, can't you be free to disbelieve? That's all I was getting at. It's a defense of disbelief in that sense. So it's a defense of being free to just disbelieve without having people lose it. That said, I want to give further context. Because look, that's what I do. I try to give context. My wife hates it when I do this. I dig into, I try to understand what's motivating people. Like, what's the push? What's the thing that gets the person to respond or talk this way or act this way? Because at the very least, you get to the heart of the motivation. And it gives you a little bit more, context. Context. We can say this. Real progressives, one of the Firestone's rebuttal was aggressive, but not in a bad way. It was a scholarly way, but clearly they have feelings about what took place. But I guess I just want to make this point that what took place was just her giving her opinion on this. Firestone in this point made this thing of a meme, this thing of we're not going to let this be a meme anymore, and I don't think Jamal weighed it properly in its context. Okay, everything is going to be subjective to disagree. The weight I put on something is going to be different than the weight you put on it. So that's the first point. It's not a meme, dude. This is not economics. Sometimes Sam Harris gets into trouble when he's having a philosophical conversation and people take it to the level of politics. He may be talking about philosophy, but certain things in philosophy and politics looks absolutely ghastly. Her saying this was not necessarily to be a pejorative or to even put you down per se. She was not putting down MMT at all. Her saying you guys are becoming a cult had less to do with MMT and more to do with how people were pushing MMT, if that makes sense. There's a massive difference in those things. I may be disinterested in something. People who are bugging me with something I'm disinterested in, yeah, I may get a little testy. It's just being a person. It's just being a human being. Beyond just being a human being, I want to touch the main thing for a moment. But let me put it this way. Going back to the founding of this particular country, going back to the founding of this country, the people who got here essentially wanted to throw off the yoke of England, settle their thing to do their new thing, promptly murdering the indigenous population, leaving a problem. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to do the labor? Now, you're building a new world. Who's going to build the labor in this new world? Indentured servants. Ugh. But hey, slaves are free. Now, this is coming full circle in regards to robots. But for a moment, I just want to talk about this part. The process of taking a human being, a man, and contorting him to a slave damages the psyche of both. Meaning both people are now damaged in some way. One person because he believes he's better than another human being, and the other person because, well, at that point his psyche is being destroyed to be used by the first person. This also created a secondary thing in a stratification of society, almost like a matrix within a matrix. So in one world of sorts, you have everything else, the real world, ecology. You have this other subordinate world of sorts, of this kind of capitalistic model. And now you have this other thing, a little bit more subordinate still, of identity. Even if, and what I mean by damages the psyche, even if today somebody says, look, we agree with you that there was massive repercussions in regards to slavery, and that those things cascaded throughout civilization and everything else. And so we're going to give some level of reparations in order to make everything okay. Even if they did it tomorrow. And look, I don't necessarily think that's something that's going to be done. It never even crosses my mind. I'm bringing this up only for a point. The people who are involved in it, they may be financially whole, but from a psychological standpoint, you understand that many of the reasons people were using signs, saying, I am a man, and those type of things, it had to do with trying to affirm the self-esteem of the individual. You may run across someone and you may come to this thought of, are they behaving this way because of my race? Now, the person's not crazy for asking that question, meaning African American dealing in American society. They're not crazy for asking the question. Certainly, you have aunts, uncles, certainly a certain smattering of American history. You understand what this country was. Thing is, the person who's asking that question, let's say for the moment that it was, and let's say for the moment it wasn't. The person who's asking the question is in this unfortunate situation of looking at another individual, and it's in their heads. Everything that you're interacting with, for the most part, is just in your heads. You're creating a conception of someone else. And from that conception of someone else, you're looking at yourself. This is, again, a difficult and horrible position to be in. You're seeing yourself in the eyes of somebody else who hates your guts, and who God knows how long has had a certain level of ownership in regards to how you behave your life. It damages the psyche. The person becomes to see himself through the eyes of the person who's in the dominant part of that society. Even if everybody was made whole in regards to, this is what this would have been like if everybody pursued from natural course. Whatever. You still have that. That eddy is still there. That thing of how people interact with one another. Because look, fact is, in the same way that particular person's psyche had been damaged, again, another person's psyche was damaged. That person may indeed believe, I'm better than this other person. It's very possible. It may not be. How would you know? That's an unenviable position to be in as a society. But those actions have currents. They have currents. It creates a certain level of inferiority complex, even in the individual, just from the position that the people were in. There's reasons why they had signs saying, I am a man, I am a human being. You're not going to treat me in this particular way. I have worth, I have value, etc., etc. That's not just for the thing of race. That's for almost anything dealing with human interactions. This idea of one person being superior than the other. As human beings, we tend to resist that particular behavior. We hate this idea of somebody else putting on airs, believing that they're better. We conform to it in a workplace only because they pay our checks. In any other context, the person would not necessarily conform to that level of behavior in that way. So yes, you may have, what I'm getting at here is the meme thing. That's not her doing a meme. There's a certain level of, certain bit of an, I don't want to say, an inferiority complex in the sense of one larger body being the larger body of economics, feeling as if that larger body, a conception of oneself through the eyes of the other, looking down on you. I understand this thing of pushing back against that, so I get it. I guess I'm making the point that that's not what's taking place here. You're looking at this through your own context. She wasn't saying this as some pejorative about MMT. If you listen to her video, she's not saying some pejorative about MMT. She's talking purely about the people who interacted with her. Don't let your own context create this stuff. It's like you're creating your own monster on this. There is no meme, dude. There's no meme. There's zero meme. Nobody else is thinking it. She wasn't saying it to be a dick about it. It was in the moment. It was in the moment. This is nothing about the discipline itself. This is nothing about any particular individual person. All I'm saying is, don't get stuck in your own context. That's the only thing I want to say on that one. It's not, there was no force behind what was being said. That's all. The second point has to do with the secondary context. So, a person has this belief in the electoral system at some point. At some point, that belief in the electoral system is dispelled. At some point, it comes back. And coming back, there's a thought of, well, hey, maybe this guy can make a difference. Maybe this person is what he says he is. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect solution, but hey, maybe it'll work. And to be cheated. And to know you were being cheated. To see it in real time. And to recognize that the person who was being cheated didn't have the balls to stand up for you. I would imagine that could smatter or smash any idea or any idea of fairness with regards to our electoral process. Events, man, damages the psyche to some degree. And it's not necessarily that the damage, all of us, I think Cornell also made the statement, all of us are crackpots. All of us encounter things that etch themselves on us. We bump into each other. Sometimes that bumping into each other is not necessarily the easiest thing. It's not the easiest thing. I guess I'm trying to make this overarching point of all of us are in the same sandbox. it's not a situation of, it's not a rebuff. That's all I'm saying. It's not a rebuff. There's no weight to that rebuff at all. There is no meme being created. The person has a particular worldview built on the events that took place in the primaries. In fact, you can make an argument that many of the people who you're floating and bumping into come from what took place in the primaries. They're eddies. In the same way you get this kind of civil rights eddy that's cycled through the years. You also have eddies in events that take place in your society. In one case, you have this superior, inferior thing. I try to give the analogy of civil rights just because it affects everyone. Not everyone may get this thing of, this happens in disciplines. This person is looking down on me, my skill set. I'm part of this discipline, and yet they're saying that they're better than I am. If something you believe in gets joked, I mean, continuously joked, and not necessarily just from this Bob at the barbershop. I'm talking about from a professional level. Something you've, to some degree, dedicated your life to. You can imagine it would burn. Burn is an understatement. Burn is an understatement. So, in defense of what they believe in, I understand where they're coming from. I get it. I'm not even, it's not even this thing of me taking issue with people getting their grievances off. That's not it either. I guess I don't want it to become, I guess I don't want the left to become this kind of fractured thing where everyone is just going into their own circle just because they can't necessarily accept the other person believing something different. On the things to which we agree, we agree. And the things that we don't, we don't. She has a different worldview. And not just a different worldview. You can imagine if you have 40,000 subscribers and you have people asking you consistently over and over and over again about MMT and not necessarily taking nicely of the disbelief. That can get a little much. I mean, I guess my feeling is it feels like this was taken really intensely. But it wasn't attacking anybody. it was like I don't like playing basketball, and then Michael Jordan sending me a dirty tweet. It's like, come on, it's not that intense. Like, it's not one of those things where it's trying to hit at. It really does boil down to more, from my own experience. MMTers can be pretty aggressive, and you can understand why. They feel like, if you believe that this is somewhat of a solution to the problems that plague you, yeah, you'd be a little bit aggressive. All new disciplines are aggressive. They have to be. They're taking over the old thing. So, again, no issue. I don't, yeah, I don't think it's an issue with MMT. At least that's not the way I took it. I saw it as a fly-by-night tweet. All right, that's my spiel on that one. It's just making this case extraordinarily clear, sticking a pin in this thing of, I understand you guys, this is your thing. You guys seem, and you're in defense of your thing. I get it, but she wasn't attacking anyone. It was not like she was thinking to herself, "Fucking real progressives, I'm going to say this thing in it." No. Certainly, the left hasn't gotten to the point where people can disagree on the left. That's what I'm getting at. It's like, it has nothing to do with MMT. That's the point I'm trying to make. And maybe I'm doing this in a very verbose way, but that's the point I'm trying to make. The petty dramas had nothing to do with what you're fighting for. What you're fighting for is perfectly okay. That's an admirable thing. It's this thing of, it's this defense of being willing to say no or saying I disagree. That's all. Everybody at some point is going to disagree with something. Do each person have to be confronted every time they disagree with something? Can it just be, Debbie doesn't believe this, and we go about our way? Should every scientist find every person who's into the New Age thing and just bash the person who's into the New Age thing because they're saying something? This does not apply to science. I'm going to find you and I'm going to beat you over the head. all of us on the left, all of us. I guess what I'm saying is the overwhelming majority of the things we absolutely agree, even in the case of her disagreeing with being bothered by the MMTers thing. If you laid out your platform, meaning these are the things I think, this is the way I think society should look and be arranged, I would wager it would look pretty damn close. You guys are quibbling over strategy. One is a different worldview. People are going to have different worldviews. That's all. That's my spiel. That's my spiel. Alright, so people, if you guys want to call in, the patrons will have the phone number. Feel free.
Topics from chat.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, my wife is telling me she has topics. She's on duty today. My wife is on duty. The other days, it's like, where's Miss Thomas? Where's Miss Thomas? Miss Thomas is needed.
Somebody wants to talk about the DNC lawsuit getting dismissed. You giving your take on that?
Yeah, the DNC lawsuit. Who's the person who brought it up?
John Smith.
All right, John Smith, the DNC lawsuit. Look, man, it's fraud just as flat fact. I mean, let's take the court out for the moment, just as from a human being's level. I have information about something, meaning you're running for something, whatever that something is, and you clue the public in and say, hey, give your money to one of these people. They're going to have a fair contest. And then throughout the course of it, I'm saying, wait a minute, this doesn't seem all that fair to me. And this grinning idiot comes on screen and says, hey, it's completely fair. We're the DNC. We would never do that. And then in court, you find we're the DNC. We did do that. That's fraud, just on its face. Now, whether this had some kind of legal thing or not, fair enough, but they've literally admitted that they can lie when they want to lie. That is a mind-blowing thing, and I would wager that probably has something to do with why they can't fundraise for damn. Yeah. There has to be some other, you would think that there would be something else. It just feels grossly unfair. What, $230 million. Not just that. I read the other day this thing that a Sanders supporter wrote. I think her name is Joan. Scathing of the DNC. The reason I bring this up is because regardless of whether you lost the lawsuit or not, that's how people feel. Like, that's one of those things where it's not like, oh, the DNC is made new. No. Some of the friction that you guys are getting, particularly Democratic candidates, even progressive candidates, has to do with having a D beside the name. Has to do with having a D beside the name. I haven't voted for a Democrat since. Now, having conversations, if you're looking at the people on YouTube, and let's say for the moment that that's representing an honest take. This is citizen journalists of sorts, if you want to call it that. Giving their take. Oh, we have a call. All right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey Jamal, how you doing?
How goes it, man? Dave?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, very cool.
There's
What's going on?
There's a little bit of feedback.
Hold on.
In my
Is this better?
Testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. You know, we had a conversation before that I'm a union rep, so
Yeah, right.
I have a little bit of experience with going after cases, and you know you're right.
Yeah.
The public knows you're right, but you don't win the case. I've been there. I've been there. So I don't know. I haven't completely read the case. I know it's online, the DNC fraud lawsuit. I know it's online, and I'm looking at a couple of things.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that really stuck out with me. The first one is this whole argument, and I love this argument because I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. They're only arguing it on using their point of view. Therefore, it is not valid. hold on.
Point of view. Point of view.
Yeah, I actually saw that they're using the Becks are using their data to show their point of view. Of course, they're showing their point of view.
That's That's amazing.
That's their point of argument. I saw in the very front or the very first part dissemination or the determination. I saw that. That is, yeah, of course you're going to do that. Of
That's
course
amazing.
you're going to do that. And then they turn around and say that, that harm wasn't shown. Now, harm in this case is going to be extremely difficult to show that. And people have to understand that.
Wait, you mean harm to the people who are getting the cash? Like, so
harm to the patron or harm to the actual plaintiffs in the case. The people who gave money to, I don't know, and depending on how much money there were, I know that I've read a little bit, or I've followed a little bit, and even the DNC apparently said, or someone said, hey, there were better plaintiffs that the Becks could have chosen. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't, gone completely into it, but it's very difficult for you to show harm in this way. If I gave.
I mean, but cash. I mean, but the whole point is it was fraud based on cash. I gave X amount.
Correct.
And you have what, $220 million or something? It may not necessarily be harm to the individual, but certainly it's harm to the collective.
Yes, and how is that going to be determined in court, and what is the remedy? I can see
back.
how sticky it could get.
Give the money back. I want the DNC to give every last penny back to each and every person who gave a dime to Bernie Sanders, because ultimately, whether Bernie Sanders won or not is besides the point. Whether he would have won or not is besides the point. Those people gave money to a process that the Democratic Party was running.
Right.
That process, they said, was fair. Even by their own bylaws, they said it was fair. It was not fair. I mean, when you're looking at WikiLeaks and you're saying, look, this is clearly cheating. Now, I feel you, man. It's just harm
the
done.
The point that Bernie turned around and backed Clinton.
Yeah.
Kind of made the argument murkier too. Hey, I completely agree that it was fraud. I want my money back too, but I'm kind of like, well, am I gonna get that $10 back? No. However, anyone, I've made this point on my channel, anyone who is still complaining about this DNC lawsuit and has not been exited, you got yourself to blame. I mean, seriously.
Let me, the other part to this is, I understand Bernie turning around and saying, okay, I'm going to help the DNC. I get that. Even in regards to showing harm, I would say showing the conference tonight, where Bernie Sanders is sitting there crying because they've stolen the primaries from him, and then all those people weeping, just tears. I mean, people, a series of tears. I understand it's probably more legal definition of harm, but if that's
where it gets sticky, because you want a physical reality, as you say. How was I physically harmed? Now, do I want my $20 back? Yeah, the people who actually gave $2,000 or whatever the limit is, they have a big complaint. They should be getting their money back.
I think, to me, the biggest thing is the hope loss. It's like, dream deferred. You're looking at this thing that you say, okay, here's a chance. You have all of these kids, 19s, 20, whatever, saying, oh my God, this guy is amazing. And I've been to the conferences, man. It is a love fest. Like, you're sitting there arm in arm with all these people. It's the closest thing to one of those, kumbaya moments where people are holding hands staring at the sun. Like, it's an amazing experience. And to gut that away, like, it's hard to get that across. When we were watching, TYT had amazing Bernie coverage. Like, they would hold all the debates, they would hold all that stuff. And so election night, Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. You're watching on election night. I think it was not election night, New York, and he lost like quick. And you're looking at this like, all right, this looks fishy. This looks fishy. 100,000 people were kicked off the rolls, and he's supposed to have a much better chance in New York, and yet he loses quickly. It looks sketchy, man, and it looks sketchy. Put it this way, it hurts from the standpoint that he lost. That's the first point. It hurts doubly more that he was cheated to lose. And I would wager that that last one is the one that's going to hurt or haunt the Democratic Party more than anything else. It is going to...
The New York, I physically saw it because I live on Long Island. I live in New York, and that was basically what ultimately was the jump the shark moment for me. When I saw all of those people in his area getting taken off the rolls. I mean, come on. One more thing before I go, I want to mention this.
Go for it.
And I know Judge Locke. I want people to take a look at his history because back in 2009, he actually presided over a case with somebody who was a whistleblower in the banking industry, and it just screamed at me because this guy, Judge Locke, actually put down a determination on this person, Bradley Birkenfeld, that was stronger, that was harsher than what the prosecutors were looking for. So that, to me, if you want some kind of, flag of impropriety in this case,
he was
I'm
more
like,
of a dick than the prosecutors. So the prosecutors said we only want him for X amount of time to justice. Fuck this, I'm throwing the book at him.
And he said, no, I want more.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know.
Why was the judge so...
Yeah, and I'm like, so this guy, this judge, who picked this judge? And he's saying that and people are saying, well, this is an unbiased case. Look, no case is unbiased.
Yeah, there's something.
Everyone has a bias.
Beings. Yeah, just as human
beings. And he's a human being. So for people to scream that it's unbiased, Lady Macbeth doth protest too much, I think. So I'm gonna look even harder at that, of course.
Very cool. Wow. That's so bizarre.
Take a look.
That's bizarre.
Take a look at it. But dude, thanks for all you do. You know I appreciate you. You know I thank you all the time.
No,
so
dude,
keep the faith, brother.
Just do a YouTube channel. I feel you. No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I do appreciate it.
And hey, have you been feeling any of the heat and any of your content? Been feeling the heat from YouTube lately?
So I don't really pay too much attention to the monetization of the video thing because it's news and information. And after they went through that last round, I didn't pay too much mind to it. In regards to cutting off content, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's been difficult to get to or anything else. I'm not sure. Right.
Well, I'm going to do a shout out for a guy because this guy actually got taken off the air, and there was absolutely no reason for it. And he doesn't know me. So T. Penguix.
One guy who, Stephen Greer, sent out this kind of press release saying that he was taken off the air. He said YouTube took him off. That's an amazing thing. They shouldn't be taking off content. Now, here's the catch for all those libertarians out there. It's a private entity. So that private entity is now going to constrain the information that you yourself are going to watch. Now,
but you absolutely have the right to go to Vimeo or another site.
That's
and
true.
People who starting to feel the squeeze, they're going to go to other sites.
That's what I think too. That's what I think too.
Yeah.
It's just Google has such a market share that it's a little disturbing that a company with that much market share, meaning that many people who use it. I mean, Google it. I mean, it's a verb at this point. So I would prefer they would just say, hey, we have information. You can look up this information, whatever that information you want. And make this, and I'll put a fine point on it. The Russian hacking thing was the justification that they used for the fake news thing. Like, so on Facebook, when they started to crack down on that, They used the
Right.
pretense of Russian hacking that didn't take place to say, hey, Russia hacked us and they've been flooding us with fake news, and now we need to tamp down on the information that you yourselves are getting. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I love the fact that they used Russia. It's like you guys are back in, you guys are
Cold War
back in the
days.
60s and the 70s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're back in the
fucking
Cold
insane.
War.
This is fucking insane. That country has a nuclear powered arsenal. That's like, it's one thing. It's one thing for the United States to go messing around with countries in the Middle East that can't necessarily fight back. It's like we're always punching a kid or punching a toddler. Well, they can bite back, and that's not going to be a conventional war. That's going to be a nuclear war right off the bat. So, yeah, I would say it's disturbing that they went to Russia. It is immensely disturbing. So,
Yeah, thank God they didn't go to North Korea.
Well, they're trying
right away.
They're trying to.
They're trying. Well, no, they're going to, any time that they focus on, there's a reason why they use a country. Either to twist the narrative, or they're like when they went to Venezuela or wherever, there are resources. Wherever they're going, they're resources. You know it.
Oh, you're trying to say there's nothing in North Korea, so they don't.
You know it. Oh, there's absolutely a lot of stuff in North Korea. They're just scared shitless of those guys. I'm scared of them too.
I would agree with you if it wasn't for Bannon leaving. Because ultimately Bannon was the guy who's making the point that it would be insane. They got us by the balls. We can't do anything to North Korea militarily.
Right.
Any intervention into North Korea, South Korea is not going to approve. They will attack South Korea and they will attack Japan right off the bat. It's like you're not going to get all of their weapons. Anything military leaders, man, these guys trip me out. Well, I mean, it could be fast. We can get all.
Well, everything is connected to. I mean, there's North Korea. I don't see North Korea really doing anything because of China.
No, me either. It's a fake threat. Bannon said as much. Bannon was like, yeah, it's a fake threat. Bannon went so far as to say, don't put North Korea as a bargaining chip. Like he wants to be hawkish on China. He wants to have some kind of trade war with China. And so he's like, don't put North Korea as a condition for a trade war with China. It's like, shit, man. These ideologies are insane. So when Hitler on Dunkirk, that movie that's out, one of the things that happened on Dunkirk, Hitler could have pretty much won the war in Dunkirk. His reasoning for not doing it, his reasoning for not bombing the Brits on the beach was, well, I mean, they're kind of like us. They're like us. I mean, they're white. They're like us. They're Western. We should be able to get along with them. And he let hours go by, at which point British was able to get their troops away based on some kind of racial ideology, white supremacy thing. It is amazing. It's amazing. So in his mind, he doesn't want to attack one. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, man.
Thanks for the time, brother. And Independent Outsider on YouTube and Twitter, everybody, check it out.
Independent Outsider on YouTube and Twitter. Thanks, man. I appreciate the call in.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
They say don't act so surprised when somebody calls in next time.
I'm being honest. I'm being immensely honest. So screw that. I can be honest and surprised if I want to be honest and surprised. Like, holy shit, somebody called in. I didn't think anybody was going to call. Yeah. Yeah, man, the North Korea thing. When, what's his name? Bannon left. And look, no love of Bannon at all. This is the weird thing about politics now. The Democratic Party, whether they realize it or not, they fucked up royally. They immensely and royally fucked up. They would have been better off to let Bernie Sanders win. Now, understand their logic. I get it. I totally get the logic. Well, Hillary Clinton is the most qualified politician on the planet. Hell, in the universe. In the multi-dimension. Oh, we got somebody else. All right. Hello, guys. Who am I talking to?
What's up? This is Garden Gnome.
Garden Gnome, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude?
Not too much. Just doing a show, you know.
Excellent, excellent.
What do you want to talk about?
And then, what's up?
Yeah.
As far as MMT and Debbie go, I mean, I agree. I don't think her point was about MMT specifically.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It really wasn't.
Yeah,
She was just annoyed. I mean, it's like, for myself, I didn't know anything about MMT, and I started getting people saying, "Hey, MMT, hey, MMT, hey, MMT." This thing of, and going so far as like, MMT is just the God honest truth. There's no debate about it. It's hardcore reality. There is, it's a bare bones level of reality. And to end up, after a while, you're looking into it, you learn more about it. World is great. But I would imagine if that's happening to you at a level of 40,000 subscribers, like what percentage of those people are into MMT, and what percentage of that percentage is hitting her up? I can imagine that will be a little bit much. And so I don't think it was just from a human level trying to create a meme or trying to create any kind of new pejorative. I don't think that was it at all. I don't think it was about MMT. I think it was about her experiences with the people.
Yeah, people get infatuated with these systems. They want to find answers. So, they leap at anything that comes along that kind of it maybe catches some of their interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and
I think there's some feedback or something, dude.
Oh, my bad. Let's see. All right, how about now?
Check. I'm not hearing it. Yeah, anyway, people become infatuated with these systems. A lot of people don't even know anything about them.
Yeah.
And they hear a little bit about them, and they get attached to them. They want to find answers, and, what is it? Tiger's got to hunt, birds got to fly, man's got to ask why? Birds got to flee. Tiger's got to land or whatever. I got it all fucked up, but man's got to say he understands. People want to understand what's up. They want to find solutions.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you, and I don't fault them for it. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's, if you believe that what you're talking about can provide some kind of solution or save things. Think of, Bible thumpers. I have this is the way. This is the truth. This is the light. Thing is, I don't think they're wrong on it. Like, at least parts of it. We do have a fiat currency. Some of the stuff that they are saying is flat fact. So it's not just the way thing. I guess it becomes this kind of intense thing when it becomes somebody is disagreeing, and because that person disagrees, that this is a big deal. I didn't take it as that way. I didn't take it that way at all. So no, I feel you, man. I agree with you.
Yeah, we have people, then there's just people who are just always on the attack, how it is on the internet. I mean, discussing whether people hate Debbie because she said something bad about MMT, it just feeds the fire. People want to whine about Debbie's opinion on MMT, something that they probably don't know a whole lot about themselves. Well, then that's fine. And we see this again and again. There's so many of these tempests and the teapots that pop up. And all these new solutions or whatever. Again, with Debbie...
You're fine.
What's that?
No, I was going to say, with the new solutions thing, do you think that if... How can I say this? What's the hedge? What's the thing that... What's the uniting vision? Or what's... Because my feeling, look, I believe it this way. 90% of the stuff that we talk about on the left, we agree. There's like literally a unanimity. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a unity on all sorts of issues, all across the board. And so it becomes, all of these issues are so they're so massive, they're so huge. And you have something where it's like a 0.3% division. And it just seems like that gets focused, and it's not just that specific thing. It's across the board. It's like one issue after the next. So you would have I give you an example, and this is kind of where I'm getting this from. This is why I did the thing. Can't we all just get along?
Well, the left is devoid of leadership. There's no leadership. So every time that there's a little bit of a difference or something, there's another fracture. The function of leadership or a leader is to, despite whatever minor fractures pop up in the structure, there's still a bridge between them.
I feel you.
There's the leader acts through.
Well, okay.
But
fair.
we have leadership on the left, if you want to look at the Democratic Party.
No, that's fair. And then maybe part of the problem is the people don't consider themselves Democrats. Maybe that's what's going on. Like, so you have all of these people who were cast out of the Democratic Party. They were just kind of ejected. Then they weren't ejected because they did anything, if that makes sense. They were more so ejected for what the party did. The party did an amazingly hazardous thing. I'm blown away that it's not so much that I'm blown away that they did it. I understand them cheating to try to get somebody into the presidency. It's how clumsy and overt it was. It wasn't.
Well,
it was clumsy.
That brings up another point: is the fact that when you start getting that clumsy, it indicates a sort of laziness. You care every year. They care less and less about what the citizens think.
Yeah.
So they get clumsier and lazier in their tactics, right?
Well, yeah,
figuring that it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? We're going to get away with it anyway.
Well, there's no response. That's what I'm saying. It's like the structures itself, the edifices that are in government that's supposed to do stuff like that, to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. That's wrong. That's cheating. They're not there. It's like there's no cop at watch. And so you have this situation where they would cheat somebody, and the party would say, there's no cheating here. It's like a Jedi mind trick. There's nothing to see here, folks. Move along. And everyone is saying, no, dude, there is something to see there. And there's no recourse. Zero. You have the evidence showing these people cheated. Lock, stock, and barrel, these people cheated. No, nothing. The party apparatus itself is allowed to run the election, which is amazing. Can you imagine you and I are in a contest, and I'm also the referee of that contest, and I'm the person who's guarding the door, and I'm the person that's that is amazing. That's okay.
Yeah, and you feel entitled to a leadership position.
Right. Right. I get to be everybody. It's like you're the multiplicity man, where you can just be in all these different spots at once. It's an amazing thing. And we look at this and say, yeah, there's no issue with this level, how we arrange ourselves at all. This election is fucking awesome. It's the best in the world. You can't see that it's the best in the world. Come on, man. This is insane. Even before Russian hacking, before you get anywhere near the Russian hacking, you have to deal with this thing of the party itself cheating other people in the country. And it's amazing that they do that. Everybody knows they cheated, and they pretend it's like, who farted in the elevator? And it's just you and somebody else. And it's like, I know I didn't do it. I didn't do it either.
Yeah, and it's the thing. It's the same thing with our economic systems. We can't just switch out one economic system for another until we take care of this other problem, which is the fact that we don't have a representative government.
Right there. And look, that's the conversation. After I did the video last time, I thought to myself, I probably shouldn't have got involved, because now I think Debbie's annoyed, and I think they're annoyed. And it's but maybe the argument is a good argument to have, because there is a certain level of hopelessness. Where does that go? Who wins that case? And I would say this, though, the corruption thing is real. I wouldn't necessarily toss a slow eye to that particular thing. I think that's a massive fucking deal. You have no cop on duty. And so it's yes, they're corrupt. Yes, everybody knows they're corrupt. Yes, they're getting millions of dollars to run in these races openly. Yes, we can look at their voting record and see a correlation between how they vote versus who pays them. All of that stuff is evident. You can throw a rock and hit a random person on the street that says, hey, do you believe those guys are getting paid? And you get a 20-minute thing of yes. They may not know anything about politics, but they would tell you, yes, they're corrupt. They're being paid off. That's our country, man. And so it's trying to add in something else to it. So I don't think she's crazy. That's what I say. I don't think she's crazy for saying. I mean, it's just, look, anybody can disagree. That's the first point. Meaning, even if she did say, yeah, I don't like it, or I don't like these people doing it, that's her opinion, man. That's fine. The second point has to do with this thing of even if you get in office, it's entrenched. Like, so it's like, A, you may get in office. B, when you get in office, what's that next barrier? And I would say the next barrier is a bunch of other people who are not doing what you say because they're getting paid to do it. They would probably make the point, though, that any change that you're looking for, whether it's in office or anything else, it takes a group. It takes a large number of people. Now, I would wager that Debbie would say the same thing. But her saying the same thing is this kind of revolution of sorts where people take political power. But I'd argue theirs is too. Theirs is too. They just have more hope in it taking place. Yeah, man. I guess I just look at this and say, is it okay for somebody to do something and somebody else to disagree and everybody just goes along their way? And just let them be people and recognize that they themselves are people.
Well, until, the corruption is solved, we're not going to be able to implement any of these new systems that we dream of. Any system that we put in the hands of these people, they're going to turn a profit off of. And most likely that's going to come at our expense.
Right there.
Whether we're talking about new political systems or revolutions within political parties, or whether we're talking about economic systems. We have to have a representative government in place before we can really do anything.
Agreed.
So
the question becomes, chicken and egg? What comes first? I mean, do you have to have this kind of implosion of society, in which case now you have a representative government because everybody else is dead and there's this trauma and tragedy? Or do you think you can get to it in a more orderly, less revolutionary, less emancipatory way? I like the word emancipatory.
Well, Debbie thinks that it's going to be a crisis. Okay, she's like, it's going to take a crisis.
I agree.
For us to be able, and I agree with her too, because people have proven themselves to be irrational.
Yeah.
And they only seem to learn from pain. Like, society seems to learn things is through suffering. When you look at, the history of the U.S., it just proves it over and over. It takes some garbage happening for people to get their attitudes in gear and start doing something. So, unfortunately, we now live in an age of super tech where, this kind of disaster is extremely dangerous. You could have a French Revolution or whatever and, have humanity survive, for example. You can't have, those kinds of revolutions anymore. We have too many dangerous systems in place. So I hear people advocating for, we should, march down to the Capitol with shotguns or whatever. Stupid.
Yeah.
Just
you get murdered. I mean, yeah. I mean, that being said, if you have a huge number of people, that's a change. I mean, because look, societies do crumble. I mean, look at Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a massive empire, and they had military tech, just like we have military tech. It wasn't just muskets. So it's possible. It's hard to see, but it's possible.
The U.S. facilitated the USSR stepping down as a superpower to a degree. So we were kind of there to make sure that things didn't go completely crazy. Who's going to play that role for the U.S.? Is the EU going to step in and help the U.S.? Is the International Monetary Fund going to step in and, quote, help us? There's no one there to play that role for the U.S. And, there's a huge difference between the technology of early 90s and today.
Today, yeah.
So, I don't know, hopefully we can achieve a gradual stepping down and stepping away from some of the policies that we've had.
Yeah.
But, I'm not seeing it.
I'm not seeing it with either of the two parties. I'll put it that way. I don't.
Yep.
I'm always blown away by this. You have a media apparatus, and you would think that the public itself will be a little bit more animated with the stuff that goes on, because it's not like it's being hidden. I mean, your Wi-Fi, your internet, and everything else works perfectly well. You can get an idea of what's going on in regards to our behavior in the outside world. you can get an idea of what's going on in our country in regards to poverty and everything else. It's not enough. It's not enough. Like, it takes a Donald Trump in that case to be that abrasive, that over the top, just gross. Now, when I'm saying over the top gross, I'm just saying optics. What he's doing politically is not massively different than what the prior administration was doing. So I understand these people losing their shit shattered the Hillary Clinton loss. But it's not that fundamentally different. You may have been in a war now if it was Hillary Clinton. Fair enough. So that would be different. But as bad as he is, he puts a horrible face on all of the bad shit that the Republican Party does. Part of the reason why I think they want Mike Pence in that office is Mike Pence is this, he's going to be Donald Trump. You know, from a policy standpoint, he is Donald Trump. But from an optics standpoint, he's a grandfatherly old man. Yes, he's a horrible person. Yes, his policies are going to be as atrocious as Trump. But he's a grandfatherly old man. So half of the media would shut up and go to sleep.
Well, you see, I don't know. I think that the Democrats are perfectly happy with Trump in office. He's a piñata that they can kick every single day in the run up to 2018 and 2020.
Good point.
Right?
But see, that was my thought. As a progressive.
What's that?
That's my thought. I thought, as a progressive, I wanted Trump in that office over. Well, let me say it this way. Between the two, I thought Trump was a better option for us in regards to what we can pull off with Trump in office. Now, that being said, that's a whole different question on whether I wanted Trump in that office. It's this thing of, it's like the tactics associated with having Trump in that office and the strategy associated with Trump is a little bit easier to see. Like, it's more clearly defined from a progressive standpoint to have Trump. You have opposition against this particular guy who's grotesque, and you have a country that's ideally willing to swing back the other way with great force when the next person comes up. It's making sure that the person who comes up in 2020 is somebody we want, not they. You know, not something that they want. Because a ham sandwich could be Donald Trump. Like, that's the most embarrassing part of that. If they really wanted somebody to win, A, they should have let Sanders just take it. But they thought Hillary Clinton is going to be inevitable. Hillary Clinton is going to win this. So it's a lock. We don't have to worry about anything else. She's going to take it. In which case, they didn't necessarily want to take that step of saying, okay, we're going to let Sanders run with it. I'm curious about what takes place in 2020. And I think for us, organization, like this is kind of why I'm beating the organization thing or the drama thing or putting down certain dramas. I want to be focused. I want to be organized. At 2018, I want to take another bite at the apple. 2020, a bite at the apple.
Well, you see, that's where you and I differ. I think that 2018 and 2020 are lost.
Yeah.
And I think 2024 is lost as well. Like, I don't think we have any chance of doing anything until at least 10 years out of, like, doing kind of what we've been doing, which is talking to people, kind of getting together, kind of trying to sort through the cascade of, you know, bullshit that's thrown at us and to learn as a society how they do that. Because once enough people learn about propaganda techniques, to put it one way, you know, I mean, we already have a fairly savvy generation since all of us grew up, like, in the computer and television age.
Right.
But there's still another level of that we have to learn, apparently, because we keep getting tricked.
Is it...
So we need more time for citizens to learn.
Let me ask you this. Is it people are getting tricked or people don't care? Like, I always lean toward the side that people just don't care.
Well, you know, again, then we go into the issue of pressures like scarcity that you talk about all the time. I mean, how much energy do you have to care?
Yeah.
Like, would you care if, like, you had a better education? You know, like, if you didn't have to worry about, you know, how you're going to get to work tomorrow and all this.
Now,
more and more, the more it affects them.
Yeah, the more it hurts, the more they get involved. I guess that's the thought.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, dude. I appreciate the call in, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Very cool. Garden Gnome. All right. Somebody's trying to call. Hello, who am I speaking to?
Hi, this is Jennifer. I wanted to give a call into the Patreon show tonight.
Hey, how's it going, Jennifer?
The thing is going really fine, as fine as it can be right now. I probably had dialed into the show a little bit late. I came in up to the gentleman who was speaking about North Korea and Bannon.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to hear the previous caller who you guys wound up talking about the topic of propaganda.
Gardner. Yeah, Gardner.
And I decided I think I really do need to call in today.
Go for it. No, go for it. Talk to me.
What's really been bothering me lately, and of course, given the title of the show, Where's the Russia Propaganda Gone? I actually had posted on my Facebook just last night that it's funny that I try not to, and of course, I don't want to give them my views. I try not to watch mainstream corporate media outlets, but it's funny how I can tell where their narrative is going simply by watching my Facebook feed. And it's been interesting that ever since the VIPS story has been picked up by The Nation and by Bloomberg, suddenly everything has gone from my Russia to my white supremacy. So it's interesting to see this shift, even when you're not watching.
Pretty much. I suspect that just because the story broke down. I mean, the wheels fell off. You've had one outlet after the next come out saying, hey, maybe there is something to the story. I think it was Bloomberg, it was The Nation.
Yeah, The Nation first and then Bloomberg, and then conveniently 3 days later, Charlottesville happens and the narrative shifts. Not to say that that wasn't an important narrative, but it's interesting to see the pattern.
Yeah, they wanted to get away from that story as fast as possible the moment that things started to fall apart. They do that, man. And when I'm saying they, I just mean the media companies. Like, you do a story for 8 months on Russia hacking. You find out that the story starts to ebb away, meaning it becomes somewhat defunct. It's like, hey, the story's falling apart. The engine just fell out of the story. And the last thing you want to do is have a conversation of how you failed at such a massive fucking level on doing a story about Russia hackings. I mean, it's amazing. They just said a foreign government hacked this country and it attacked this country.
And there were sanctions because of that, too.
And there were sanctions.
We took political action against them, so...
There was real world consequences for a lie. That's amazing. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Media's job, for the most part, is to give the public information that they need, relevant, honest, earnest information. They've monetized the news, meaning they have a financial interest in order to give you things that are in their particular interest. They have a narrative. In this case, they put asses in seats with this idea of Russia hacked us. Donald Trump is ghastly. Russia is Russia. And them two are working together. And so you need to tune in to see what's next. The next developments on Russia hacked us. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's a massive failure. It's a failure that should be screamed about.
It is insane. And the thing that I've noticed is that when you question that narrative, people will turn on you. And what I noticed based on the comments of that Facebook post, people were like, who even are you anymore? Are you saying that mainstream media is not like the bastion of truth between us and this horrendous Trump administration?
They're programmed.
I was like, guys, all I'm saying is I'm questioning the narrative.
They're programmed.
And
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I was just saying they're programmed.
No, exactly. And I said, do you not realize the patterns in this? It actually really hurts me to see people that I've known for years and people that I know are smart, people that I know are politically astute of these narratives. And it's almost as though they're afraid to think for themselves. If they profess any differing opinion, they're afraid of being labeled a Nazi. They're afraid of being labeled some sort of thing that is evil for questioning. And since when has questioning become negative? I think that's the best thing we have is we have our brains and we are our own people. We can look at different sides and we can decide these things for ourselves. And suddenly that's becoming demonized. And that actually really has begun to bother me.
It's not suddenly. Believe it or not, it's not suddenly. I mean, if you talk to a right-winger, he would probably say the left has always been this way. I think you're seeing it now because you're seeing a split in the party itself, if that makes sense. So you have because think about it. Up to this point, you had MSNBC, you had Fox News, you had CNN. For the most part, all those, they give a certain slant to the story. So Fox News gives you one slant, CNN gives you one slant, MSNBC gives you another slant. CNN supposedly the thing in the center. Well, at the point where people started falling away from the Democratic Party, you could see it's almost like breaking the being outside of the frequency allows you to see the frequency. It's like, hey, that these guys are bullshitting us. It's like, do you see that these guys are bullshitting us? And your people who are still there are like, what are you talking about? What do you mean they're bullshitting us? I don't understand why you think they're bullshitting us. This sounds perfectly rational to me. Well, it sounded perfectly rational to you too when you were on the frequency. Once you kind of edged out and you're looking at it from the side. Now, the DNs, those guys, they collude. There's a such thing as the what's called establishment, this kind of media and political thing kind of join, where they share the stories. The stories that they're coming out with, the stories for the most part that pertain to the parties. But the view or the point of view you're getting is not the point of view of somebody who's somewhat skeptical of the entire enterprise. It's based upon people who essentially accept the words of the politician. They don't necessarily. They deal with.
It's an appeal to authority. It's a major logical fallacy, and that's you see it. I see it happen. Even though I've been tuned out of corporate media for a number of years, but I'm really seeing the pushback happen a lot more now from people who we used to consider ourselves in a similar political compass area. So.
Because Democrats look at it as, how dare you not vote for our person? How dare you not vote for our person? And so Trump being up there, being kind of grotesque, your friends looking at Trump as being the epitome of everything wrong with America. It's like, the world has changed so abruptly since Obama left office. Trump is murdering more civilians. He's trying to beat Obama's records at knocking out more immigrants out the country. So, and
drone strikes.
Yeah, right. He's trying to max out Obama's record on drone strikes. So that's the first part. But understand, they never looked at Obama that way. Like, they never looked at the Democratic Party as, oh, these guys were out there murdering people too. These guys were out there doing X, Y, Z. So they look at it as, well, this particular network is telling me something. I'm believing this particular network. The people who I interact with are believing this network. There's a certain level of tribalism associated with it.
You're right. We are kind of like that as human beings. So I guess it makes a lot of sense. We want to belong to a group where we have that necessity. So
and it's not just want to belong. It's also what you're not. Like it's a combination of the two. It's like you define your identity by the things you draw to you and the things that you push away. I'm pushing away anything having to do with Donald Trump. He's over there. I'm with these guys because these guys are attacking Trump. It's almost like when you're like, not you, but abroad, some of the fighters, and you kind of make this point. It's like, you realize that not all those guys are quote unquote terrorist fighters, even if they're fighting for the other military. Some of them are fighting because they believe they're freedom fighters. People have all sorts of reasons for being against something. What are you for? Is always the question. That's where you break people down into these kind of fractions. What are you for?
And is that not the problem that we've always, the Democratic Party's been having lately? Is what was their campaigns about? We're not Trump. Well, what are you for? Single payer? Are you for relieving student loan debt? Are you anti-war? What are you for?
They can't answer that. The left has moved. You found third way Democrats were able to get away with this thing of like when Bill Clinton started passing those laws. It's like, yeah, I'm going to repeal NAFTA. Or I'm going to pass NAFTA. Yes, I'm going to kill Glass-Steagall. He could do that as a Democrat. I'm Bill Clinton. I'm a Democrat. I'm to the left. He has a certain amount of shielding for the things he's trying to do. Well, the public is kind of more aware. They're like, whoa. I don't like my Democratic Party doing those things. Which means that if you're going to have a conversation with people, you're going to have a conversation about what you're not. If you talk about what you're for, you're going to alienate the people who are giving you cash. If you talk about what you're actually for, you're going to alienate the people you need to vote for you. Russia.
So in the end, it's money and politics.
Yes.
Is the big evil that's really kind of fucking all this up. So
see, I take it to another level, and I know lefties. Like I said, I leave some lefties on this one because I'm further to the left than most. But the profit motive, in general. Think about it. It's software. I consider this stuff to be a certain amount of software and dealing with people themselves. So you have a society where you tell people that you can get small advantages by having more cash. Those small advantages build up, of course, meaning the more cash you have, the more status you have. but you also have the secondary thing of scarcity. My ability to eat and do things and have access to things are based on whether or not I can acquire as much cash as I could possibly acquire. And so you have this strata of society. You've created a particular society, and you've given that society a certain amount of marching orders based on their own scarcity and their own physicality. Now, the moment that those people aggregate to a business, that business, again, is still concerned with getting more profit. At some point, it's going to reach into the political apparatus. The politics of it allows it to grow beyond what it could be before. So I guess I try to make this point that it's not purely money and politics. Yes, money and politics has an issue, but it goes beyond money and politics into the whole money influencing human behavior in general. At least that's my opinion. People differ with me on it. They're like, "Oh, dude, that's too far. That's too far."
But it's the fact that people do value money and status, and that's kind of what they strive to, what they think is going to make them
happy, have
a certain status in life.
And
what they value.
What told. The society itself tells them this is value. I mean, for instance, this is like saying, my ability to go to Spain is dependent upon how much money I have in my wallet. Then, if you want to go to Spain, how are you going to get the money to have it in your wallet? Like it's this thing of your society tells you this is a benefit, and it's a benefit in a way that goes beyond just, a pat on the head and good job. I intrinsically understand it. I get it. I feel it just because my access to things is improved by it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So question becomes, how do you fix that?
Yeah, it certainly is strange and interesting times we're living in. So,
I'm fascinated by it. I have to be honest, I'm fascinated by it. When you look at, and I'm not going to hold you for too long. When you look at politics right now, and like you say, you've broken away from that party dynamic. You're looking at a frequency that's not necessarily in line with the typical frequency of a person who's in that party.
I've been a registered independent for life. I was a Democrat temporarily to support Bernie in the primaries last year, but back to being an independent, that's just kind of how I roll.
So the moment that you went back to that, yeah, you're seeing, okay, this person is different than I am. Yeah, man, everybody, it's fascinating because a lot of those people who are saying this looks different than I am they used to be Democrats. They used to be full-fledged Democrats.
Yeah.
And now they consider themselves something else. And so they're reaching out in the ether for anything they can put their hands on. So you have some of these guys looking at left, right-wing news sites. Nothing for the ideology itself, purely for the information itself. You have RT who puts in a certain amount of Russian propaganda, but who also actually does pretty decent news. It's fascinating to see how people are breaking after what took place in the last election. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to look at the end of it. That may be a completely new and different party with people from factions from the left and from the right. That would be the best case scenario.
Well, we can only kind of wait and see. And like the previous caller was saying, we have to just like kind of maintain activity, like try to coalesce together around things that we have in common.
Agreed. And that's regardless of whether they're on the left or the right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Well, thank you very much for your time, sir. I really do appreciate being a part of this.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. Welcome.
Sure. You have a great night and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, guys. All right, guys.
Right.
I am going to end it on that one. Look, I want to thank everybody who showed up. I always appreciate these shows. I always enjoy doing these shows. And also, thank you to the patrons who decided to call in. And thank you to the people who decided to chat. I guess I said thank you beforehand, so that should have counted. All right, guys. If you... Parameters of rigged, still taking donations. All right. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the work through Patreon. Thanks, guys.